Hey guys, I actually wanted to go over dividing fractions with models with you. This is a very tough concept, and by now you should have already watched that video and went through a live Nearpod. And if you haven't finished the Nearpod, um, or this is on Monday instead of Friday, that is just fine. It's a tough concept. So you should have this printed, and I'm going to go through it on my screen because I don't have a document camera here, which is how I would typically give you your notes. But we're going to go through it together. So please bear with me. It is slightly different. Um, when dividing fractions, so you should have been doing all your notes like this, except, it would have been in a written form. And these should already be in your notebook, but we'll go over this on Tuesday. So when dividing fractions, you're finding out how many of one fraction are equal to another fraction. So it's a confusing concept to many people, but your standard this year actually says that you have to be able to model these division problems. Now, in fifth grade, you had a dividing fraction model as well. And according to some of the fifth grade teachers, you guys actually did not get to all of this, or you might have hit on it, but not fully learned it. So that's why we're going to go over it more in depth. And next week, our main focus is on dividing fractions and multiplying still. So our very first problem is 1/2 divided by 1/4. Now, division problems we think of as how many of this are in this. But when we see fractions, it's like our mind plays tricks on us. When I look at this problem, 1/2 divided by 1/4, this is actually asking and posing a question. It's actually saying how many fourths are in 1/2. So I want you to write that down. How many fourths are in 1/2? So it's like a question that we're reading backwards. So I would typically read the math problem 1/2 divided by 1/4, but the question's a little bit backwards. How many fourths are in 1/2? And you should probably already know how many fourths are in a half, but we're going to use this grid over here to model it. So once you've got this, I want to take this right here and I want to split this up. So what we need to do, and I'm going to use a draw feature, so bear with me. This is not going to be perfect at all. I'm going to try to change this color though. We'll do blue. There you go. So what I need to do is I need one of these bars to represent half. And then I need the other one to represent fourths. So think of these as those rods that you probably mess with in elementary school. So I'm going to split this whole thing straight down the center. Oh, pretend that's straight. So now what I have is I have half and half and half and half. So I want to go ahead and actually label this. So let's just write right there 1/2. And then I'm going to do the same over here. 1/2. Well, I've got my halves represented, but I don't have my fourths represented. So on this bottom rod down here, even though we've already split it in half, we need to take each half and cut it in half to make our fourths. And again, pretend these are perfectly straight, even though we know they're not. Hey, that line looks pretty good. So now this whole bar down here is split into 4 sections. Each section represent 1/4, one part out of a total of 4. So I'm going to go through and write 1/4 on all of these. You do the same, please. I apologize if I sound stuffy. It's because I am. All right, so we've written that in. Now let's go back to our question. How many of these fourths does it take to cover one of those halves? So now it's a little bit easier to see. So if I have, I don't know what this is going to look like. Ooh, that looks really bad. So if I have 1/2, how many of those fourths did it take to cover it? And hopefully you said 2, because it takes 2/4 to cover 1/2. So sometimes when we're using these models, it actually does turn out quite simple and it's really easy. Our answer here is 2, because it took 2/4 to cover 1/2. And I'm going to highlight that. Our answer is 2. All right, now let's look at the next problem. Number 2. If you guys want to number these 1, 2, and 3, go for it. I just apologize, I did not number them. So on this one, it says 2/5 divided by 1/10. And we're going to word the question exactly like we did up here. So it's like it's backwards. It's really saying how many 1/10 are in 2/5. And as you can tell, since I'm typing, I need to make that smaller so you guys can see it. So we're going to do the same thing here. Since we're trying to figure out how many of these tenths can cover fifths, or 2 of those fifths, we need to take these rods and do the same thing we did up here. But we don't need halves this time. We need fifths and we need tenths. So this time, we're going to go, oh, do I need to click draw? I don't know if it's on draw or not, you guys. Sometimes this thing can be such a pain. Okay, maybe it's on it. Who knows? I don't know. So I need to split it in fifths. Fifths are a little bit more tricky because I wouldn't cut it in half. So I'm going to try to do, oh, you guys, this is driving me crazy. You do see me clicking this, correct? Oh, there it goes. Okay, it only took forever. So I'm going to take the top bar and split it the best I can into 5 sections. Now, it doesn't have to be perfect. You just have to be able to see it. And we all can clearly see that is definitely not perfect. But I do have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sections. So each one of these would represent 1/5. So go ahead and take and write in each one of these little sections 1/5. And then you guys just keep going with that. Then directly underneath it, this long rod here, I don't need it in fifths. I need it in tenths. So I need 10 pieces. Well, if I take each fifth and split it all together, that would give me 10. So I'm going to draw my lines the same exact places. Then I'm going to go back through and split each one of those in half. That should make 10. So there's my 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. Awesome. So each one of those represents 1/10. So go ahead and write in each one of those sections 1/10. Now, if you need to pause this, that's fine. You guys pause it till you catch up. Don't let me leave you, okay? Don't want to leave you hanging. So keep labeling these. I'm labeling so many on purpose. And when we get to our answer, you'll know exactly why I'm labeling that many. Okay, since I stopped with the fifths there, I'm going to stop with my tenths there, but feel free to keep filling those in. All right, back to our question. I'm going to get my highlighter tool. How many of these tenths are in 2 of the fifths? So I want to start by highlighting 2 of those fifths. That way I know what I'm talking about. And when you highlight it, you can really see what it is that you're working with. It just helps you to see it a lot better, or it does for me. Okay, so I need to see how many of these tenths it's going to take to cover 2 of those fifths. And I can totally see that it takes 4 of these tenths to cover 2 of those fifths. Therefore, my answer would be 4. And then I'm going to highlight that as well. I have my little this little menu up here hidden. I don't have it pinned on purpose just so I can have more space here. All right, so again, if you need to pause this, catch up, go for it. Okay, now the last one. For some reason, I don't know why, but this last one can be more confusing. I guess it's because just like number 2, we split it into fifths, but then we're going to 15ths instead of tenths. And for some reason, that really throws people off. So I want to give you a little clue. So up here on this problem we just did, you know how we split this one long rod into 5 pieces to get fifths? Then we halved it. We split it into 2 underneath that to get 10. Well, isn't 5 times 2 10? Yeah. So we can use a trick similar to that down here. I'll show you in just a second. So let's start with a problem. It reads 3/5 divided by 1/15. By now, you should know how to formulate this question. I bet I'll have to make my font smaller. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that. So here, remember, we read it backwards. How many 1/15ths, it's kind of hard to say, are in 3/5? Not 2/5, but 3/5. I could have probably made that a tad larger, but I'll leave it for now. I will probably fix that later because it'll drive me crazy. All right, so just like the last problem, we need to take our top rod and split it into 5 sections. This shouldn't be too bad since we just did it. I'm going to try to follow those same lines up there. And you guys have already figured out by now, I cannot draw a straight line, especially with this little mouse pad. But it could be worse. All right, so there's my fifths. I'm going to label them. This time we're going to have to highlight 3 of them instead of 2 of them because it's talking about 3/5. So keep labeling. I'm actually going to label all of these this time. All right, so those are done. Now, underneath that, I need to make 15ths. Now, this is where it's helpful. 15 is a multiple. You've already learned multiples. Is a multiple of 5. So this is where it helps. So I can still split this bottom rod into fifths to help me out because 15 is a multiple of 5. So it will help me to do that. I just have to figure out how many sections each one of these should be to make 15. Up here, I split it into 2 to make 10. What would I do to make 15? 5 times what would make 15? Hopefully you're thinking 3. Because if I take and split each one of these into 3 sections, I now will have 15 all the way across. And yes, I am going to do that. So every one of these, you're drawing 2 lines in each one of these to make 3 sections. And we're going to pretend they're all equally spaced. Oh, that last one is a lot bigger. But we're going to pretend. So each one of these are 15ths. Now this is mega tiny. And I'm writing with a cursor, you guys. Well, that could look a lot worse. So in each one of these sections, if you want to fill them all in, go ahead. You do not have to fill all of them in because we're not going to use all of them. However, if you will fill them all in, you'll know exactly what you were talking about when you look back on these notes later. Remember, this notebook is your only math resource. There is no textbook. We are not that blessed. So we have to make our own here. I'm actually getting better at this. I better stop bragging. I'm going to mess it up. All right, so once we have all of these filled in, then let's go back and solve our problem just like we did all the rest of them. Okay, I'm going to stop there because we were originally talking about 3/5. 1, 2, 3. So that's why I'm stopping right here. So now let's solve our problem. Get my highlighter. How many of these little 15ths does it take to cover 3 of these fifths? So I'm going to highlight 3 of these fifths. I know your highlighter looks so much better than mine because you guys are just doing this with pencil and paper. So there's 3 of them. Now I'm going to highlight the exact equivalent of the 15ths. I just need to go through and count all of those 15ths and see how many it took to cover 3/5. I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I counted 9 of them. So our answer here is 9. So how many 15ths are in 3/5? That would be 9. 9 15ths are in 3/5. That's how we would answer it if we were answering it in word form. So I'm going to bring this back up. I'm going to zoom it out. That way you can see it a little bit better. Now I know it's kind of small. I apologize for that. So this is dividing fractions with models. And we're going to work on this a little bit more over the next few days. And then I'm going to show you how to do it without the models, okay? All right, now take this, write dividing fractions with models as the next topic in your notebook under the table of contents, trim it and paste it in your notebook. Have a great day, guys.